Timeout magazine, which is kind of a growing leader in kind of city rankings and information. And really, it's just a great and definitive source if you're visiting a major city on kind of places to eat, sightseeing, free things to do. Really, in general, I think it's a great resource. They have an annual list of the 40 coolest neighborhoods in the world, and they just released that the other day. And so it was interesting. Max, did you have anything that jumped out at you?
Oh, I, well, okay. Well, just to cover the list real quick, there's not much of a. They don't give a lot of information on how
Right.
they created this top 40.
No.
Timeout does send out a survey every year where they gather a lot of information from city dwellers across the world, and purportedly this top 40 neighborhoods ranking came from the surveys as well as further consultation with their experts and editors in the field. So who knows what that really means? There's some kind of data behind it, and clearly they were kind of trying to pick sort of up and coming, maybe under the radar a little bit neighborhoods rather than the household names. And somehow this top 40 ranking perfectly came out to be 40 different cities, right? So, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what went into this, but that said, just, it's for fun. It's all for fun. And skimming through the list for me, there were 6 places that kind of I maybe have a little bit of a connection to. And so that's just what I was going to talk about. At number 3, Samswepo is a neighborhood in Hong Kong that made me laugh because it's I have heard this before, and my wife Kelly has mentioned this as well, that a lot of people, maybe foreigners, seem to think that this is a cool hip neighborhood because it's a very local neighborhood. So it just seems interesting to people on the outside because it's not like the foreigner neighborhoods, the expat neighborhoods in Hong Kong. This is like a real locals neighborhood. But does that make it trendy or cool? I don't know. It's been trending that way supposedly, but it's where we used to always stay because Kelly's aunt has an apartment here, which she got at the bottom after the SARS crash, and so she got a steal of an apartment. And at the time, not only was real estate depressed after SARS, but on top of that, this was a bad area. And so it started to rebound. It became sort of a working class neighborhood for a long time. And now apparently people view it as trendy. And if that's the case, great. That's awesome. But it's hard for me to see it exactly that way, considering how I was introduced to it 7 years ago. So the other place that jumped out at me, Uptown in Chicago, I used to go there pretty regularly. There's a sort of second Chinatown, really more like a little Saigon in Argyle, which is sort of in the northern portion of Uptown. And I had a friend who lived there. There are little gems, little cool spots in Uptown, but didn't really seemed a little sketchy at night.
Like a
standout.
standout. No.
Yeah, so that's my recollection of Uptown. Of course.
It sounds like it's a theme here.
yeah. Well. So number 26, they have Wynwood in Miami, and that's really that's what you would expect. Something like that. Wynwood is much more of a mainstream household name. It's considered cool. It's almost to the point where it's considered cool too much that it may not be that cool anymore.
It stands out from some of the places on the list for sure.
Yeah, but I enjoy going to Wynwood. Before COVID, we used to go to Wynwood a lot. Moving on, at number 29, they have a place called Bugis in Singapore, and it's just funny because coincidentally, that's where we stayed when we were in Singapore last year. Our hotel was kind of on the outskirts of Bugis, so I liked that neighborhood, but I mean, I like a lot of neighborhoods in Singapore. I wouldn't have known that it would stand out in any way. It's a good location, close to the CBD, multiple transit stops. But you know, I didn't know that this would be a top 40 neighborhood.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll skip. I'll skip there. I was going to mention some place in Taipei, but really I don't know anything about it, and so there's no point in talking about that. And then there's a place in Kuala Lumpur that they list as well, Taman Paramount, which apparently is very close to where my uncle and aunt live. And I have spent lots of time in Petaling Jaya, which is their city, their suburb of Kuala Lumpur, and Taman Paramount is also in Petaling Jaya, very close by, and I'd love to check that out. That'd be cool, but I don't know anything about it myself. So
Gotcha.
there you go.
Yeah. So those are interesting ones that you mentioned. I think, I mean, and maybe this is the skeptic in me, but I can't help but wonder if perhaps these neighborhoods are maybe not in cahoots with Timeout, but kind of are looking for some exposure. I know a lot of these neighborhoods might have like a special improvement district or something, a level at which things are governed. And so I can't help but wonder that for a $10,000 fee, or maybe not even that much, that you get to be one of the coolest neighborhoods in the world too. But I'm not meaning to say that to hate on any of the list of places, but I think, as you say, Max, it's really not a primary list you'd still think of. I think the most direct instance for me is Nordre, which is in Copenhagen. It's to the north of downtown, and I really only ended up there because when Alex and I were there in 2017, we got in this electric bike system, and it managed to take us up there. And it was, don't be wrong, there was a lot of like graffiti, which I think is another theme, and murals, which is the theme of places like this. But it was kind of off from the beaten tourist path. And so, and actually it's a neighborhood where a significant number of immigrants are moving when they get to Nordre, or when they get to Copenhagen, I'm sorry. But I can't help but wonder if in some ways the coolness of a neighborhood is kind of correlated with the fact that, creatives are able to move in there too. So a fair point might be these places are cool because of the fact that, you can actually live in the city and afford them, as opposed to some of these really prime entities. And maybe Wynwood is eventually going this way where, you won't be able to get in there anymore. I think another one of the mainstream ones I saw was Little 5 Points in Atlanta. And that's kind of a similar story where it's kind of becoming more well-known, but maybe there is some sort of a financial cutoff or something like that that's causing some of these to fit in. Because I know, like, for some of these, I think for some of the more major cities on the list, I really, even if I was familiar with the city, I wasn't at all familiar with the neighborhood that they had chosen for it. But a point that I really did like seeing is that it was, I mean, I hate to use the word like Eurocentrism or like cultural bias, but like, I think so many of these lists, you really primarily see places from, like Western Europe and Asia Pacific and some of the American primary cities. And I liked that there wasn't that kind of cultural bias there. I like seeing there's a neighborhood from Lagos, Nigeria, and I can't recall it at this point, but like, I know that's a rising city within Africa. And, Johannesburg and Cape Town, I think, had neighborhoods on the list too, which maybe you'd expect that a little more. But, Africa, there's such a limited amount known on its cities, but yet, it's a rapidly growing place. It's a major center, and it's primed to potentially be the largest city in the world by the end of the 21st century. So I liked really seeing that it was some places that are maybe people aren't as familiar with. And I guess my hope from it is that whether there's an incentive or what causes the list to be developed or not, that, so many business owners have probably been hurt during COVID. So I hope this helps them to see an improvement on maybe a bit of a kickback for some of the small business owners that are in some of these areas.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think any kind of exposure, any kind of opportunity where we're going to be talking about these types of places will only help. I'm not quite so cynical, so I want to say that that Timeout could just do a better job of titling this rather than saying the coolest neighborhoods in the world, which, as we saw on city data, a lot of people scoff at this list because of that. Maybe just more like to the point of like
Maybe a
places,
little more transparency
yeah,
too.
places you need to check out or something, you know, not as some definitive greatest top 40.
Right.
But maybe they did do a good job of titling that way so that people would talk about it, even
We're
if it's
sitting
in
here
a,
talking about
yeah.
it. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah.